makes you ready for Utah football more than the KSL Sports Zone.
Ready?
The Utes get set for another huge Big 12 game as they square off against Cincinnati. Your home for the best coverage of Utah football is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G, presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans Olsen, Scott Gerard, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. All right, folks, it is time to talk some BYU on our Cougar Preview Show with the man himself. He is your Cougar insider for KSLSports.com and overall good dude. It is Mitch Harper. Mitch, how are you?
Hey, Mitch.
Hey, guys. Happy to be on with you today.
Always a pleasure. In your let's go back to August. Did you ever think 8-0 would have been possible?
I didn't know because I really thought the road games in the Big 12 would cause some landmines. And, there have been moments for sure. Colorado, Iowa State, where even Arizona, where it looked like in all three of those spots, BYU was, dead in the water and looked like they were going to take an L. But they've always had an answer and responded. And, whether it's Bear this year, Jake Retzloff last year, the common thread has been this coaching staff, and they've gotten to a point where no matter who their personnel is, they believe they can win. And, BYU's a winning program that believes no matter the circumstances, they can find a way to get out with a victory. And that's a strong attribute to have for a team that's chasing some big things heading into November.
So, Mitch, I can't really get any information on this, and I'm just wondering if you have any insight into L.J. Martin, Cialia Serra, and Jack Kelly. I mean, really, that's the three-headed monster you need back for Texas Tech, and it just feels like mum's the word down there.
It's very mum right now, and it's still kind of the buzz just continues to be further evaluation this week with the bye week. And, L.J. Martin's going to be critical. Because, Cialia Serra is interesting with him. He got, a little bit shaken up in the Arizona game, which seemed to be that same arm that he was being looked at Iowa State. Quickly responded, though, and returned to action in that game. And Kelly's critical for BYU. But all three of those guys are key pieces to what BYU does, both offensively and defensively. And, LJ Martin, I've kind of said this whole year that the season does go as far as LJ will take them. And I think if they have any games without LJ, that's going to be a tall task to try to replicate his production because, after him at running back, it's really thin. And, I even asked Kalani in this week's presser if there's any consideration to maybe make a position change for someone because Kalani has a history of doing that. Moving someone over to the running back side because they've got to get creative there if LJ can't go. But the mum is probably the right word to put it, is that everyone keeps referring to further evaluations and as far as they continue to navigate this bye week.
All right, so just on your own speculation, saying there's no position change and LJ can't go, how do you think the carries are distributed going into next week? Because I don't anticipate Moa's coming back anytime soon, is he?
Yeah, I saw Moa last night at BYU's trick or treat event that they had at the women's basketball game. He was in a masked costume, looked okay. But they're not officially ruling him out for the season yet. But the severity of his situation, it would seem like it might be tall task to expect him back for November 8th. But I think that with that running back situation, what's interesting, too, that kind of gets a little bit forgotten in that game was late in the game against Iowa State, Preston Rex. He went to the medical tent, and he was limping at the end of the game. Now, he was walking on his own after the game, but he got a little bit shaken up in that one, too. So it's a banged-up football team. And then, so you got Enoch Nawahine, you got Preston Rex. A real wild card. You dig deep into this running back unit, but a guy that I thought was, in moments impressive. And the context here on these is this was third team, fourth team type situations in spring and fall camp because this is how deep of a player this was as far as going to the running back unit. Was someone that I kind of always came impressed with was Logan Payne out of Weber High School. If they have to, elevate him to someone who's, on that travel roster, he could be a name to watch. Kalani continues to reference how there are players in the program that, people will learn about their names soon. If you want to have, who could be that Sione Moa type candidate, I'd point to Logan Payne potentially being that guy for BYU. But Rex Nawahine and then Logan Payne, Javesa Damuni, they've said all the right things about how they still believe in him, but he hasn't sniffed the field ever since he had that fumble against West Virginia. And he hasn't been, he's been suited up and traveled and been available, but hasn't played. And he's got to maybe be in the factor more so too. But, that speaks volumes when LJ goes down. He's not even coming near that field. So I'd go Rex Nawahine and Logan Payne as the top three for BYU at running back.
So give me some of your thoughts on Bear Bachmeier. They ran him again 12 times for 50 yards. He's got a touchdown in every game except for Colorado, but he still had 100 yards at Colorado on 15 carries. We're seeing some of his completion percentage drop a little bit, but he's still making big play after big play. Just your thoughts on Bear Bachmeier for the remaining 4 games in the regular season, and then just your thoughts on what he is for the future of BYU.
It's been remarkable how he continues to just always level up and rise to the occasion in these moments. And, you get deep into the weeds and kind of look at some of his throws. And that one pass to Parker Kingston, that was a touchdown grab. It was kind of like backyard jackpot style where he just throws it up in the air and it felt like it floated a little bit. He thought that's going to be a pick, and it lands in Kingston's hands. There's been some good fortune there for Bear, but he's a gamer. I've been really impressed with his ability to, on the ground, to get tough yardage up the middle on these quarterback draws where he's going into the heart of defenses, and getting 3 or 4 yards. And, BYU has been very fortunate this year to where they're always in, some third and manageables. This is not a team that was always behind the sticks, and that's because of LJ and Bear. And I think that's been something that's been very advantageous for Bear to have success this year, is that he's been in a lot of manageable situations where he's not in third and longs and feeling like, oh, there's no chance to get the first down here. So I think that's been something that's been good. And I think Aaron Roderick's done an excellent job in developing Bear. I think this has probably been the finest moment for Aaron Roderick since he's been BYU's offensive coordinator. A lot of praise goes to Jay Hill for this BYU program when it comes to the defense, and rightfully so. Jay Hill's done an excellent job in these 3 years at BYU, but I think Aaron Roderick deserves some more flowers too for what he's doing offensively. To adjust in game at Iowa State, and the pass is coming. And I know Iowa State they were down some key personnel in their secondary, and that kind of reared its ugly face for the Cyclones. But for BYU to still be effective throwing the football in those circumstances, that's pretty impressive. And I think that, goes back to the top at the offensive coordinator spot with Aaron Roderick, who's done an excellent job with Bear. And, Bear's the face of this program going forward. And for BYU and this program, and he's a humble guy, and it doesn't seem like the spotlight is getting too much to his head at all. I thought, that spot at Iowa State could have been a real letdown and a half with that Utah win and the increased notoriety, but he was the same Bear, and he just rose to the occasion. They had a slow start, sure, but the offense was playing some good football early in that one. So I just think he's been really impressive for BYU, and he shows that he can do it in the air. He can do it on the ground, 300-plus yards in multiple games this year. He can do a lot of different things for this team, and it's he's the face of this program going forward.
Do you anticipate JoJo Phillips will be in the lineup in Lubbock?
That's what Aaron Roderick's saying. So they expect him to play on November 8th. And, we saw his, moments of him at practices dating back to Arizona week where he was in a helmet and pads. So it's been a slow build trending towards that. But yeah, Roderick believes that he'll be playing against Texas Tech on November 8th. That's the expectation, barring any sort of setback. And that would be huge, because coming out of fall camp, if you pointed to a guy who was, the number one target for Bear, it was probably JoJo Phillips, because Parker Kingston was, dealing with his injury in camp, and Chase Roberts was still never fully 100% coming back from the shoulder in fall camp. So the guy that had the best chemistry with Bear in camp was probably JoJo, and you saw that early reflected in the Portland State and Stanford games in terms of targets and accounts. So that just would be another huge weapon to a receiver unit that's been really good with Roberts and Kingston and their ability to get yards after the catch. And you add in JoJo and Cody Hagan, that would be a huge boost for BYU down the stretch run.
So do you believe BYU has to go 3-1 to be in the Big 12 championship, or is there a good possibility they go 2-2 that they could be in this championship?
3-1 to be on the safe side. I think that's going to be important here because, two of the teams that they've got down the stretch run are going to be in that, Arlington race chase, if you will, with Texas Tech and Cincinnati, maybe to a lesser degree, TCU as well, to be a third team. So I'd say 2 or 1 loss is probably the safe bet for BYU if you got to be 11-1 to get to Arlington, because last year they had 2 losses and they were left on the outside. So I think they've got to have the mindset to, be an 11-1 football team at least. They obviously want to go undefeated, but that will be a tall task because BYU has a difficult remaining strength of schedule left. But if they can go, 3-1, that would be huge. And I think that's where, that Texas Tech game coming out of the bye, regardless of where BYU is at personnel-wise, BYU should play loose. They're going to be an underdog in that one. That's just kind of the MO of what people view BYU going into those spots. They'll probably be a, touchdown underdog, I would imagine, against Texas Tech, but play loose. And I think BYU can be very competitive against Texas Tech. I'm really curious to see how they perform this week against K-State. But, for BYU to be in this spot in November with, championship aspirations, it's a really good football team right now. And it's a better football team than last season, led by Bear Bachmeier and BYU team that's pretty sound all across the board.
I think that we looked at so many teams around the Big 12 and, thought they'd be great and anticipated. But Cincinnati's, frankly, wasn't really on my radar. And I think for a lot of people, still haven't been much on their radar. I think there's going to be a lot of people down in Provo keeping a close eye on that game in Salt Lake City just to see what Cincinnati's about.
No question. And Cincinnati with their running back situation, kind of curious. I know they've had some injuries there, but, this is a really good football team. And, and I think it speaks to just, again, the depth in the Big 12. And it'll be really interesting to see, after this weekend, what the playoff rankings look like next Tuesday night and how the Big 12 is viewed because, they don't have that self-fulfilling quality loss metric that goes in their favor. Texas Tech a few weeks ago loses the game at Arizona State with Sam Levitt, a good Arizona State team, and they plummet 7 spots, and it doesn't suddenly get viewed as a quality loss. So there's like this razor-thin margin for error, if at all, for these Big 12 teams. But this is a pretty good league. I've been really impressed with the quality of these teams. I mean, BYU going into that spot in Iowa State last week, I know Iowa State wasn't ranked, and they were on a 2-game losing streak, but in my time covering BYU since being here at KSL since 2019, I think that's one of the best wins I've seen BYU put together on the road, hostile environment. It wasn't, a massive BYU crowd. There was a good showing of Cougar fans there, but that was a, pro Iowa State crowd. Obviously, they're home fans. They were juiced up for that one. Great tailgating scene. They were ready for hours before kickoff, and BYU rolled in, faced some adversity, responded and bounced back. But it shows just like the Big 12's got some really competitive teams that, Iowa State was once the number 11 team in the country, and BYU went in there and got a win over those guys. So I just think that this league is getting better, but it just doesn't feel like they're getting the respect to match that depth that's been I think on display in this league. And teams like Texas Tech have quality wins over Houston, and Houston's a 7-1 team. So it's an impressive Big 12 race, and that Cincinnati-Utah game is going to be a good one. And I even look at Utah too. Utah's got only 2 losses, and it's 2 teams that are knocking on the door of the top 10, could be in the top 10 of the playoffs. If they run the table, I mean, there should be at-large conversation for Utah because that'd be their only 2 losses. If that was an SEC team, they're probably a lock for the playoff to have 2 losses against teams that would be in the top 10. This Big 12 is really good this year, and whoever comes out on top of this is definitely one of the best teams in college football this season.
What'd you think of the 11 o'clock Texas Tech kickoff, and do you think game day's on its way?
I thought it was good for selfish reasons in the media, like just getting up and going and covering a game. But I think what we learned, too, the BYU-Utah game, being in prime time, network TV, it's kind of a flop by TV rating standards. I mean, 2 million viewers, which is good, but it wasn't great what you would have thought with all of the promotion that a network television provided to that game with big noon kickoff and all the social media, chatter about the game. Still, BYU-Utah's kind of regional, and those primetime spots, I guess, don't deliver as well for the Big 12, whereas an early morning window where a lot of fans maybe are still getting ready to go to their, games in the primetime spots later in the day, they can be at home and watch a morning game. Maybe you can get more eyeballs on the product because you need that in the Big 12. And I think that's something that's going to be important, to get eyeballs on BYU and Texas Tech. And so I think it's not ideal, but same time, if you're a road team, I think it's really good because, you just get up, get ready for the day and just go play the game. And then you're home at a reasonable time and you can enjoy the rest of your weekend, especially if you get a win. So I think it's okay. And I think it'll be a really good spot. And I thought that Reese Davis tease last night on the college football playoff show about, tortillas possibly being thrown around on college game day soon. That should be the college game day game, especially if Texas Tech wins this week at Kansas State. That is a perfect game because and there are 2 teams, BYU and Texas Tech, that really have the ability both to be good, excellent teams down the stretch this year in the college football national conversation, but could be 2 of the best programs going forward in this, new media rights era of the Big 12 between now and 2031. These are 2 heavily invested programs that are committed to winning higher than probably they've ever been before. And, they have the potential to be 2 of the faces, the flag bearers of the Big 12 going forward, and be a real launching pad for these programs. So it'd be huge if game day was there to spotlight the Big 12 in back-to-back weeks with Salt Lake this weekend and then Lubbock the next.
For those that have been in Lubbock and other Big 12 cities, I know Hans got a good dose of a triple Whataburger.
That was great.
Where are you at on Whataburger? Yes or no?
Big fan of Whataburger. Anything on that menu, I'm a Whataburger fan.
Very, very good.
They love their mustard on those things, but it works.
They do.
And they love thick slices of cheese.
And a bunch of onions.
It's so good. It was amazing. Probably see you out there in Lubbock, Mitch.
Yeah, definitely. And I've never been to Lubbock. I'm looking forward to it. I don't hear all the greatest of things of Lubbock, but I'm open-minded. I'll see what it's like and then give my judgment on it then. But I think it's going to be an amazing atmosphere. I mean, I think that's one thing I've kind of seen with these Big 12 games, and I kind of always wondered to myself too, at what point, when BYU rolls into a town, would it mean something to a Big 12 city? Because 2 years ago, going to games like Kansas and West Virginia was still kind of like, this is weird. This Big 12 legacy program playing BYU. Well, quickly, BYU's made its presence felt in the Big 12 to where they are a big-time game. And I think that's huge, too, for BYU to potentially have a top 10 matchup in a conference in a power league. I mean, that BYU-Arizona State game was huge last year, but this one has the chance to be even bigger stakes. So huge chance for BYU and great spot for them to have a bye week, to have an extra week to prepare for a really good Texas Tech team.
Yeah, during COVID, Utah State was playing New Mexico in basketball, and it was and the New Mexico governor wasn't letting any games being played in the state, so they moved everything to Lubbock. So Utah State played New Mexico for back-to-back games in Lubbock. So I spent 4 or 5 days in Lubbock, and it was I wasn't too brokenhearted when it was time to come home. Let's just say that. But I ate a lot of Whataburger. I did eat. I ate my weight in Whataburger, and that was considerable.
If it's as difficult to get to as Ames, then we're in for a Really fun trip.
Yeah, I'm imagining it's going to be challenging to get to. There are direct flights on Southwest, but that's about it from what I've seen.
You can find a direct from Salt Lake to Lubbock. Wow.
It's on Southwest. Nothing on Delta, but there are direct flights.
I had to do Delta and then had a long layover in Houston and then finally made it to Lubbock. And when you fly in, you will actually fly into a cotton field. Like that airport is surrounded by cotton fields. So everything you would anticipate, you're going to get there in Lubbock for sure. Mitch, you're the best, man. We appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, guys. Take care.
There he is, Mitch Harper, Cougar Insider, KSLSports.com. Good dude, too. You're hard-pressed to find a better beat writer than that guy.
If you're 2-2, losing to Cincinnati and Texas Tech, you're out.
Yeah. Yep.
If you're 2-2 and it's TCU and UCF, you're in.
Probably, as crazy as that is to think about, beating the two good teams and losing to the two mediocre teams.
Right.
But, yeah, probably.
It's about who you lose to.
Yep. And, because if you pick up those wins and pick up those tiebreakers against those two teams, then you're in pretty good shape.
But I just want people to know that the sample size that I have for this team tells me they could beat anybody they play.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Anybody they play.
Yeah.
People ask, could they go undefeated? Yeah, they could. Absolutely, they could. Bear Bachmeier's had 4 games or 5 games without a turnover? 5?
I believe 5. I think he's only had interceptions in 2 games this year.
Yeah. Okay, so if you're telling me that, if you're telling me that you can own the turnover margin and you got this defense, you could beat anybody. You could beat Texas Tech. You could beat TCU, Cincinnati. You could.
How much of the not turning the ball over, how much of percentage do you give to Bear Bachmeier and how much percentage do you give to Aaron Roderick for keeping him in situations where it would be very hard to turn the ball over? Meaning, like the play calling with the one read, it's either like, hey, look, you got it, you don't, okay, then run.
Oh, I think that they've got it down to a science.
Yeah.
Of we're not going to lose the turnover battle. In fact, I grabbed a note for Matt Campbell, Iowa State head coach, because going into that game, I was going to mention this, but Matt Campbell was 41-10 just by winning the turnover battle. So he was 41-10. Kalani's something ridiculous like, I don't know, it's like 62-5 or something, 62-8, some crazy number, just when winning the turnover battle.
That's crazy.
So I think, smart minds get together and they start cranking this out and they're like, all right, how much do we risk turnover as compared to how much does not turning over the ball control a game? One turnover against Iowa State, it's over.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%.
Instead, they got a +4 margin.
Yep. And that's what won them the game.
Yep. So it's like with Bear, I want to get rowdy. I want to continue to open up the gates, but you've won 8 straight by doing what you're doing. And by the way, there's a lot of mesh points. He runs a ton of mesh points. Mesh points can always get sloppy, especially with inexperienced quarterbacks. Now, this is one thing to watch if they do go to a different running back. If LJ can't play, different running backs can have problems at mesh points. Mesh points, different heights with different running backs, different points in the arms, different types of hands, different contact. LJ and Bear got very comfortable with how they were delivering and pulling and taking those RPOs. But I think that with a game plan probably controls 70% of the turnovers.
Yeah. And then Bear just
60, 70%.
Making good choices.
And then making the game plan to the point where it's like, okay, Bear, we will not throw the ball here.
Yeah.
So I think that they've done a really good job with that.
All right. Coming up next, we continue to get you ready for the stretch run of the BYU football season. Cougars have the week off. They'll be back in action a week from Saturday when they take on Texas Tech right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Let's go! The Complete game coverage of the Cougars is right here on the KSL Sports Zone. It's a much-needed off week for the Cougars as they rest up for the final stretch of the 25 season. Your home for the best coverage of Cougar football is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G, presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone, your Cougar preview show. BYU, Texas Tech, not Saturday. I wish it was Saturday.
Yeah, me too.
I'm ready to get this thing going.
So
Kalani, on the other hand, is like, we need
to slow down.
Yeah.
A couple of guys that we have not mentioned. Raider DeMooney has been out for a bit.
Yes.
And he's another guy. Give him an extra week. Can you get Raider DeMooney back in the lineup? Because if so, that could help spell Tanner Wall a little bit. That gives the backing to Satawala. By the way,
Satawala has been so good.
Nobody's touching Satawala. You leave him on the field every snap. You can leave him on the field. He has been excellent. He's had a couple of coverages breakdowns, including the very first play of the game. And by the way, I don't know what exactly the coverage was against Iowa State, but you do know that Satawala was over the top of that route, bit down hard on the nickel blitz, thinking there was going to be a dropout, and the go route went right over the top of him. First play of the game against Iowa State. Horrible momentum killer. Just, that's a tough way to start. But look at how Satawala responded.
Yeah.
And you learn from those moments. Sometimes it takes getting burnt really bad and having the meat of the muscle show through the burn and the horrible pain of the burn to remember, oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
That sucks. I don't want to do that ever.
But when you're a kid, you put your hand on the burner, you only do it once.
Yeah. And so you're hoping that every step like that for this sophomore Satawala, he's learning. But Raider DeMooney is one that, you look at and say, all right, can he be back? Another guy that we didn't see check in against Iowa State, at least I didn't. I don't know if you saw him, number 96, Justin Kirkland.
Nope. I think he was a DNP.
I don't think he played.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he dressed. I'm pretty sure I saw him on the sideline. I just didn't see him ever touch the field in the game. And when you're getting your butt kicked in the run game in the first half, that's a nice body to put out there and say, right, just stop some of the interior bleeding, please. So, if you're kind of paying attention to what Justin Kirkland's doing, Justin was fighting through injury, and it took him a while to get onto the field kind of later in the season. And so I don't know what the management is with Justin Kirkland, but if he's available against Texas Tech, that's a big help. So it'd be nice to have Raider, Justin Kirkland, Siale Serra. When I was watching Siale Serra after the injury, Siale Serra's injury didn't scare me as much.
Okay.
Like I wasn't thinking, oh, that's a season ender. With LJ, the way it all went down, you're like, that might be a season ender. When it was not announced as a season ender, it's like, that's amazing news. Okay, let's heal. Let's go from there. With Siale, it felt like it was kind of a, dang it, but we'll live to fight another day here. That's how I felt with Siale. So I would hope that he could be back. I mean, you've got to have Glasgow, Sarah, and Kelly to finish this season. That's your staple. And you got to have LJ Martin. Everybody else is just like, if you get JoJo Phillips back, oh, man, that's a good cushy feeling. If you get Raider DeMooney back, that's a good cushy feeling. You have to have Glasgow, Sarah, and Kelly healthy and LJ Martin healthy on the offensive side.
So you can pick 3 of the 4 against Texas Tech.
3 of the 4?
Yeah. Actually, no, you get 2 of the 4.
2 of the 4.
Against Texas Tech.
LJ and Jack.
Yeah. It's pretty much a no-brainer on that one.
Yeah.
All right, so who's your third then, if you can have the next one?
Glasgow.
Yeah.
And I know Glasgow finished the game, so people are probably like, what? I just watched part of the third quarter.
That dude looks like he's running on fumes.
He got stiff-armed to the ground. That's not Glasgow. Like that, he did not look. He will never take. He does not miss a tackle. He missed a couple. And it's like, that's not him. So he's dealing with a bum wheel or something. But if you're talking about fully healthy, first 2 would be Kelly, and LJ. Third would be Glasgow. But Sarah is so critical. You know, when Max Alford came in to fill in for Sarah against Iowa State, you saw a real drop.
Yeah.
And it was a drop in the scrape over the top off the edge. So D-end collapse on a tight end or collapse on the offensive tackle, and D-end's either coming inside, or if you're running an odd front, he's got B-gap responsibilities, and your linebacker contacts with the tight end, you've got to have that backer that scrapes over the top for the outside contain. Both Kelly and Glasgow were getting trapped at that outside point. And I'm not sure if they were responsible for outside leverage and contain, or if that was Max Alford that's supposed to scrape over the top, because Ciali does that often, where he'll be there to make that tackle as the running back bounces to that gap that's kind of between the hash and the numbers. And that just wasn't happening. And then Alford did a much better job of that in the second half, and it started to look much more clean. But he, just like I talked about with Satawala, I think Max Alford was kind of thrown into the heat.
And Alford's, he's a really good player, good kid. He was at Utah State. He's just been through hell and back with injuries. And so, you know, he's got multiple ACL tears. And so that's a guy that, you know, when he's probably
multiple ACLs?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. From high school and college. And so you know that the speed probably isn't there, and certainly isn't to match Ciali. And so when you look at the comparison, there's going to be a big drop-off. Now, Alford's going to bust his butt. He's going to give you everything he's got. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, he had a great sack.
Yeah, great player. But there's just going to be a drop-off. There just is.
Yeah, he had a great sack against Iowa State. And he had a couple of other big moments. But Sarah's really come on strong. By the way, one thing that we brought up during the broadcast was this is just highlighting and emphasizing how bad of a loss Che Bryant-Strother was.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Because Che Bryant-Strother was supposed to be 1A, 1B with Ciali Sarah.
Yeah.
And he lost him in the Portland State game.
All right, Hans and Scotty will wrap up this bad boy next. Get you ready for JJ and Alex, and get you ready for the U Preview show coming up tomorrow right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Get set for another huge Big 12 game as they square off against Cincinnati. Your home for the best coverage of Utah football is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G. Presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Ah, yes. Another Cougar show in the books. Big thanks to Danny Ainge. What's happened?
Scotty's just being Scotty.
Lloyd's speaking.
That's what he does.
You know what? You can say a lot about Lloyd. Lloyd speaks the truth, though. He doesn't lie. He gives you the honest opinion on things.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, give me your honest opinion, Lloyd, on BYU Texas Tech. How does that play out?
Ooh.
Whoa, you're jumping right to that game?
Yeah.
Can we get through Texas Tech?
No.
Kansas State?
Kansas State
No.
first, please?
Well, you're calling a Kansas State victory there, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're still sticking with that.
Yeah, I am.
I think you're right.
Yeah. I am. I think it's Kansas State. I think that's a tough stadium to play in, and I think that they're starting to heat up.
Which would be a real downer going into
it
that
would.
BYU.
It would.
I
Well-
mean, it's good. So it's good for Utah. Obviously we want everything for our local teams, so it's very good for Utah. It keeps them in the hunt, but it'll be bad for next weekend's game.
I have very, very selfish hopes and desires for the Big 12.
Yeah.
Very selfish. But it would be really nice to be able to take this entire station because you got two. So, yeah, I'm very selfishly, I want to see Texas Tech lose. And I want a down, bruised, and kind of beaten Texas Tech team for BYU in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
The other thing is they've lost their backup quarterback that was really good and came in against
that beat
University of Utah.
Yeah.
It was really good. And now they go back to Morton. I don't know how healthy Morton is, and I kind of wonder if it's like, hey, Morton, now it's got to be you. Yeah, but I'm only 60%. Well,
toughen up, big fella.
We just lost our second string, so it's you at 60%. We'll see. Kansas State could get to him. Kansas State could bruise him up. But personally, I just want to see the easiest path to Arlington.
So would you be willing to sacrifice a crazy atmosphere in Lubbock, probably game day out there, previewing BYU if it meant Kansas State wins?
I would sign that contract right now.
I would too, actually. Because you know what? We talk about selfish. What do we all want? A BYU Utah Big 12 championship game.
But so just think about this. This weekend could flip everything on its head.
Yep.
Texas Tech lose to Kansas State. Utah beat Cincinnati. Everything's flipped on its head.
Yep.
Because BYU is going to beat Cincinnati. I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. I like BYU's matchup against Cincinnati. So if Utah takes care of business and BYU takes care of business, Cincinnati's out of the picture. Texas Tech loses to Kansas State. That's 2 losses.
Yep.
BYU could give them their third.
Then they're out.
It's not as crazy as people think it might be.
Yeah. No.
Now, Houston's the wild card because Houston doesn't have a lot of tough games in front of them. They got 1 loss. So Houston could be a tough one. But Houston has to play TCU, right?
Yeah. I can't remember. They still do have TCU, but I'm not exactly sure who else they have left.
Sorry, I put my 4-game roster away.
All right, so they've got West Virginia this week. Then they're at Central Florida. Then they get TCU at home, and then they're at Baylor.
Hey, those aren't 2 guaranteed.
No, that's not a guaranteed 3-1 finish there. They could go 2-2 in that stretch.
So BYU, rest up.
Let's go.
Let the dog lick the wounds.
Yep.
Because they've got aggressive saliva.
Let that cat nurse those wounds and those tears.
Yeah. And then, right back. Are you talking about my old cat?
Yeah.
The hickey maker.
Yeah.
The healer.
The healer.
Healer.
All right, 2:58. JJ Alex coming up next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.